Sarah Martinez stood outside the tall glass doors of the Berkshire Music Academy. Her hands were shaking. She had been standing there for almost 5 minutes now, trying to make herself go inside. The building was huge and beautiful. It had white marble columns and big windows that sparkled in the morning sun. Sarah had never seen a building this fancy in her whole life. She looked down at her dress. It was her best dress, but it was old. Her mother had ironed it 3 times last night to make sure it looked perfect. Sarah could still smell the starch. The dress was navy blue with small white flowers. It was the same dress she wore to church every Sunday. She wore her only pair of nice shoes, too. They were black and a little tight, but they were clean and polished. Sarah took a deep breath and pulled open the heavy door. The inside of the building was even more beautiful than the outside. The floor was made of shiny marble that reflected everything like a mirror. There were paintings on the walls in gold frames. A huge chandelier hung from the ceiling. It had hundreds of tiny crystals that threw little rainbows all over the walls. Her shoes made clicking sounds on the marble floor. The sound echoed in the big hallway. Sarah felt like everyone could hear her coming from miles away. She walked slowly, holding her old folder against her chest. The folder had all her sheet music in it. It was brown and worn at the corners. Her grandmother had given it to her 5 years ago. A woman sat behind a big desk made of dark wood. She wore a black suit and had her hair pulled back in a tight bun. She looked up when Sarah walked over. "Can I help you?" the woman asked. Her voice was cold and professional. "I'm here for the audition," Sarah said quietly. "My name is Sarah Martinez." The woman looked at a list on her computer screen. She scrolled down with her mouse. Martinez. "Oh yes, here you are. You're in the Harrison Audition Hall. 3rd floor. Take the elevator and turn right." "Thank you," Sarah said. She found the elevator and pressed the button for the 3rd floor. As the doors closed, she caught a glimpse of herself in the shiny elevator walls. She looked small and scared. She tried to smile at herself, but it didn't look real. The elevator dinged when it reached the 3rd floor. The doors opened, and Sarah stepped out into another beautiful hallway. This one had thick red carpet that felt soft under her feet. There were more paintings on the walls. These ones showed famous musicians and composers that Sarah recognized from her books. She turned right like the woman had told her. At the end of the hall, she saw a group of people sitting on benches. These must be the other people auditioning today. Sarah walked toward them, trying not to stare. All of them looked so different from her. There was a tall girl with blonde hair wearing a black dress that probably cost more than Sarah's family made in a month. She was talking on an expensive phone. Next to her sat a young man in a perfect black suit. His shoes looked brand new and shiny. Another girl wore a deep red dress with diamonds in her ears. Real diamonds, Sarah thought. They all had professional-looking folders and cases. Some had leather bags with Music Academy names printed on them. Sarah looked down at her old brown folder again. Suddenly, she felt very small. She sat down on an empty bench away from the others. She didn't want to talk to anyone. She was afraid they would ask her questions. Questions like, "Where did you study?" Or "Who is your teacher?" Sarah didn't have good answers to those questions. The girl in the red dress looked over at Sarah. She whispered something to the boy in the suit. They both looked at Sarah and then looked away quickly. Sarah felt her cheeks get hot. She knew what they were thinking. They were wondering what she was doing here. They were wondering if she had come to the wrong place. Sarah opened her folder and pretended to look at her sheet music. She had looked at these pages thousands of times. She knew every note by heart, but she needed something to do with her hands. She needed to look busy so no one would talk to her. The door to the audition hall opened. A man in glasses stuck his head out. "Maria Chen?" he called out. The girl in the red dress stood up. She smoothed her dress and picked up her leather bag. She walked into the audition hall with her head held high. The door closed behind her with a soft click. Everyone on the benches got quiet. They were all trying to listen to what was happening inside, but the door was too thick. They couldn't hear anything. Sarah closed her eyes. She tried to calm her breathing. Her heart was beating so fast. She felt like she might be sick. She thought about her family back home. Her mother had cried when Sarah got the letter about this audition. Happy tears. Her father had hugged her so tight she couldn't breathe. Her little brother had told everyone at his school that his sister was going to be a famous piano player. They had all worked so hard to help her get here. Her father had worked extra hours at the warehouse for 3 months to save money for the bus ticket. Her mother had packed her a lunch for the trip because they couldn't afford to buy food at the bus station. Her grandmother's friend had let Sarah stay at her apartment in the city last night so she wouldn't have to pay for a hotel. Sarah couldn't let them down. She had to do well at this audition. She had to make them proud. 20 minutes later, the door opened again. Maria Chen came out. She was smiling a little bit. The man with glasses called out another name. One by one, the other students went in for their auditions. One by one, they came out. Some looked happy. Some looked worried. Some looked like they were about to cry. Finally, Sarah was the only one left on the bench. She waited. And waited. She wondered if they had forgotten about her. Maybe they had lost her name on their list. Maybe she wasn't supposed to be here after all. Then the door opened. The man with glasses looked at his clipboard. "Sarah Martinez?" he called out. Sarah stood up. Her legs felt weak. She picked up her folder and walked to the door. The man held it open for her. She walked through. The audition hall was the most beautiful room Sarah had ever seen. It was huge, with a high ceiling painted with clouds and angels. The walls were covered in wood panels that glowed golden in the light. And in the center of the room, on a small stage, sat the most magnificent grand piano Sarah had ever seen. It was black and shiny. It looked like it had been polished until you could see your reflection in it. 3 people sat at a long table facing the stage. They all had papers and pens in front of them. The man in the middle was older, maybe 60 years old. He had white hair and wore a dark suit. He didn't look up when Sarah walked in. The woman on the left was younger, maybe 40. She had brown hair and wore a gray dress. She gave Sarah a small smile. The third person was another man. He was bald and wore glasses. He was already writing something on his paper. Sarah walked to the stage. Her shoes made soft sounds on the wooden floor. She climbed the 3 steps up to the stage. The piano seemed even bigger now that she was close to it. "Please state your name and where you're from," the older man in the middle said. He still didn't look up from his papers. "My name is Sarah Martinez," she said. Her voice sounded small in the big room. "I'm from Los Cheros, New Mexico." The woman on the left wrote something down. The older man finally looked up. He looked at Sarah for a long moment. His eyes moved from her face down to her dress, then to her old folder. Sarah saw something change in his expression. It was like he had already decided something about her. "Los Cheros," he said slowly. "I don't believe I'm familiar with any music schools there." "There aren't any music schools there, sir," Sarah said. "It's a very small town." "I see," the man said. He looked at the other 2 judges. They looked back at him. Sarah couldn't tell what they were thinking, but she didn't like the way they were looking at each other. The older man reached for a stack of papers on the table. He picked up a single sheet and walked toward the stage. He handed it to Sarah. Sarah looked at the paper. It was a simple exercise. A very simple exercise. The kind of thing that first-year students played. It was just basic scales and simple chords. Sarah had learned to play things like this when she was 7 years old. She looked up at the man, confused. "Sir, I think there might be a mistake." "That's what we'd like you to play," the man said firmly. His name tag said Dr. Wilhelm. "Just play what's on the page, please." Sarah felt her stomach drop. They thought she couldn't play real music. They had looked at her old dress and her worn folder and her small-town background, and they had decided she wasn't good enough. They weren't even going to give her a real chance. She looked at the 3 judges. The woman on the left looked a little uncomfortable. The bald man was already writing something on his paper. Dr. Wilhelm walked back to his seat at the table. He picked up his pen, ready to check off some boxes and move on to the next person. Sarah looked down at the simple exercise again. She had traveled for 18 hours on a bus to get here. She had used up all her savings. Her family had sacrificed so much, and these people weren't even going to listen to what she could really do. She felt something hot rising in her chest. It wasn't anger exactly. It was something stronger. It was determination. It was pride. It was everything her grandmother had ever taught her about standing up for herself. Sarah set the simple exercise on top of the piano. Then she opened her old brown folder. She took out a different piece of music. It was a difficult piece. A very difficult piece. It was something that only advanced students played. The pages were worn because she had practiced it hundreds of times. She sat down on the piano bench. She adjusted it to the right height, She placed her fingers on the keys. The keys felt cool and smooth under her fingers. "Miss Martinez," Dr. Wilhelm said from the table, "I asked you to play the exercise I gave you." Sarah took a deep breath. She looked at the beautiful piano in front of her. She thought about her grandmother, who had taught her that music wasn't about following rules. Music was about speaking from the heart. Music was about showing people who you really were. "With respect, sir," Sarah said, turning to look at Dr. Wilhelm, "I didn't travel all this way to play a first-year exercise. I came here to show you what I can do." Dr. Wilhelm's eyebrows went up. The woman on the left stopped writing. The bald man looked up from his paper. For a moment, nobody said anything. Then Dr. Wilhelm leaned back in his chair. "Very well," he said. There was something in his voice. Maybe it was surprise. Maybe it was curiosity. "Show us what you can do." Sarah turned back to the piano. She placed her hands on the keys again. She closed her eyes for just a moment. She thought about her grandmother's living room, where she had first learned to play. She thought about all the hours she had spent practicing on that old broken piano with its sticky keys. She thought about why she loved music so much. Then she opened her eyes, and she began to play. The first notes filled the audition hall like water filling a glass. Clear and pure and beautiful, Sarah's fingers moved across the keys with perfect precision. The simple exercise was forgotten on top of the piano. What she was playing now was something completely different. Something powerful. Something that required years and years of practice and dedication. Dr. Wilhelm's pen stopped moving across his paper. He looked up at the stage. His mouth opened slightly. The woman on the left put down her pen completely. She leaned forward in her chair, her eyes wide. The bald man forgot to write anything at all. Sarah didn't notice any of this. She was lost in the music now. Her fingers flew across the keys, playing notes so fast they almost blurred together. But every single note was perfect. Every single note was exactly where it should be. The music built and built, getting louder and more intense. It filled every corner of the big room. It seemed to make the air itself vibrate. This was just the beginning. Sarah had so much more to show them. She had a lifetime of music inside her, waiting to come out. And she wasn't going to stop until they heard every note. Sarah was 6 years old when she first saw the piano. It was in her grandmother's living room, pushed against the wall between two windows. The piano was old and brown. Some of the white keys were yellow with age. Some of the black keys had chips in them. But to Sarah, it was the most beautiful thing she had ever seen. "Can I touch it?" Sarah asked her grandmother. Her voice was quiet and full of wonder. Her grandmother smiled. She was sitting in her favorite chair, the one with the soft cushions. "Of course you can, mi amor. Come, I'll show you." Sarah walked over to the piano slowly. She reached out one small finger and pressed down on a white key. A sound came out. It was a little out of tune, but Sarah didn't know that. To her it was magic. "How does it make the sound?" Sarah asked. "Inside the piano there are strings," her grandmother explained. "When you press the key, a little hammer hits the string. That makes the music." Sarah pressed another key, then another. She pressed them all one by one, listening to each sound. Some were high and tinkling. Some were low and deep. Together, they made a rainbow of sounds. "Would you like to learn to play?" her grandmother asked. Sarah's eyes went wide. "Can I?" "I can teach you a few things," her grandmother said. "I used to play when I was younger. I wasn't very good, but I know the basics." That was the day Sarah's life changed forever. Her grandmother taught her the names of the keys. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, then they started again. C, D, E, F, G, A, B. Sarah learned that the pattern repeated over and over across the whole piano. She learned to play simple songs with one hand. "Mary Had a Little Lamb," "Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star." Songs she already knew, but now she could make the piano sing them. Every day after school, Sarah went to her grandmother's house. Her grandmother lived just 2 blocks away from Sarah's family's small apartment. Sarah would run the whole way, her backpack bouncing on her shoulders. She couldn't wait to play the piano, but her grandmother could only teach her so much. After a few months, Sarah knew everything her grandmother knew. She wanted to learn more. She needed to learn more. The piano was calling to her. She dreamed about it at night. She thought about it during school. Music was becoming part of who she was. "Mama," Sarah said one evening at dinner, "can I take piano lessons? Real lessons from a teacher?" Her mother and father looked at each other. Sarah saw something pass between them. "Something sad, baby," her mother said gently. Piano lessons cost a lot of money. We can't afford them right now. Sarah's father worked at a big warehouse on the edge of town. He loaded boxes onto trucks all day long. It was hard work. He came home tired every night with sore arms and a sore back. Her mother cleaned houses for rich families in the nicer part of town. She left early in the morning and came home late at night. She always smelled like cleaning products. They both worked so hard, but there was never much money left at the end of the month. The apartment rent took most of it. Then there was food and electricity and water. There was Sarah's little brother's daycare. There were clothes and shoes that Sarah kept growing out of. There was nothing extra for things like piano lessons. That's okay, Sarah said quickly. She didn't want her parents to feel bad. I can learn by myself, her father smiled at her. It was a tired smile, but it was full of love. You're a good girl, Sarah. Sarah was determined to keep learning even without a teacher. The next day at school, she asked her teacher if she could use the computer during lunch. The library had 3 old computers that students could use. Sarah had an idea. She went to a website called YouTube. She had heard other kids talk about it. She typed in how to play piano. Hundreds of videos appeared. Videos of people teaching piano. Videos of people playing piano. Videos of everything she wanted to know. Every day during lunch, Sarah watched these videos. She watched them carefully. She paid attention to where the teachers put their fingers. She listened to what they said about rhythm and timing. She memorized everything she could. Then after school, she went to her grandmother's house and practiced what she had learned. She tried to copy what she had seen in the videos. Sometimes it worked. Sometimes it didn't. When it didn't work, she tried again, and again, and again. Sarah was patient. She didn't give up easily. Her grandmother watched her with proud eyes. You have a gift, mi amor, she said one day. A real gift. What do you mean? Sarah asked. Some people can learn to play the piano, her grandmother explained. They can learn the notes and the timing. They can play the music correctly. But you do something different. When you play, you make people feel something. That's a gift. That's something you can't learn from a video. Sarah didn't fully understand what her grandmother meant, but she kept practicing. By the time she was 8 years old, she could play songs that most 10-year-olds couldn't play. By the time she was 9, she could play things that most 12-year-olds struggled with. But there were problems. The piano at her grandmother's house was very old. Some of the keys stuck. You had to press them hard to make them work. Some of the keys made buzzing sounds. The piano hadn't been tuned in many years. Sarah learned to work around these problems. She learned to press harder on the sticky keys. She learned to ignore the buzzing sounds. When Sarah was 10 years old, something happened at her school. The music teacher, Mr. Henderson, heard her playing the piano in the music room during recess. He stopped in the doorway and listened. When Sarah finished, he walked into the room. How long have you been taking lessons? He asked. I don't take lessons, Sarah said. I teach myself. Mr. Henderson looked surprised. You taught yourself to play like that? Sarah nodded. I watch videos on the computer. And my grandmother helps me sometimes. That's remarkable, Mr. Henderson said. He sat down on the chair next to the piano. Would you play something else for me? Sarah played another song. Mr. Henderson listened with his eyes closed. When she finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Sarah, he said finally, you have real talent, serious talent. You should be studying with a professional teacher. You should be in a music program. My parents can't afford lessons, Sarah said simply. She wasn't embarrassed about it. It was just a fact. Mr. Henderson frowned. I see. He thought for a moment. What if I gave you lessons for free? During lunch or after school? Would you be interested? Sarah's heart jumped. Really? You would do that? I would be honored to do that, Mr. Henderson said. Talent like yours shouldn't be wasted. For the next 2 years, Mr. Henderson taught Sarah everything he knew. He taught her about music theory. He taught her about different composers and different styles. He taught her proper technique, how to hold her hands and how to move her fingers. He fixed bad habits she had developed from teaching herself. Sarah soaked up every lesson like a sponge. She practiced for hours every day. Her fingers got stronger. Her playing got better and better. Mr. Henderson gave her harder and harder music to learn. She mastered pieces that high school students played. Then she mastered pieces that college students played. When Sarah was 12, Mr. Henderson told her about a competition. It was a small regional piano competition for students in New Mexico. I think you should enter. he said. I think you could win. Sarah wasn't sure. What if I'm not good enough? You are good enough, Mr. Henderson said firmly. Trust me. Sarah's parents couldn't afford the entry fee for the competition, but Mr. Henderson paid it himself. He drove Sarah to the competition in his old car. Sarah wore her church dress. She carried her grandmother's old folder with her sheet music. There were 20 other kids in the competition. Most of them were from the bigger cities in New Mexico. They wore fancy clothes. They looked confident. Sarah felt out of place again, just like she would feel years later at the Berkshire Music Academy. But when Sarah sat down at the piano and started to play, everything else disappeared. She forgot about the other kids. She forgot about their fancy clothes. She forgot about feeling out of place. There was only the music. When she finished playing, the audience was silent for a moment. Then they started clapping. They clapped louder and louder. They stood up. They gave Sarah a standing ovation. Sarah won first place in the competition. She got a small trophy and a check for $500. She gave the money to her parents. Her mother cried when Sarah handed her the check. No, baby, her mother said. This is your money. You earned it. I want you to have it, Sarah said. You and Papa worked so hard for me. This is my way of saying thank you. Her father hugged her tight. We're so proud of you, he whispered. Winning the competition changed something in Sarah. It made her believe that maybe she could do this. Maybe she could really become a piano player. Not just someone who played for fun, but someone who played professionally. Someone who could make a living with music. When Sarah started high school, Mr. Henderson told her about music schools. Real music schools. Colleges and universities that trained musicians. You could get a scholarship, he said. With your talent, I know you could. Sarah started dreaming about music school. She looked them up on the library computer. The Berkshire Music Academy, the Manhattan School of Music, the Curtis Institute. They all looked so beautiful, so professional, so far away from her small town in New Mexico. But there was a problem. These schools wanted students who had studied with famous teachers. They wanted students who had been playing in youth orchestras and performing in recitals since they were small children. They wanted students who came from music families where everyone played an instrument. Sarah had none of these things. She had taught herself with YouTube videos. Her teacher was a kind middle school music teacher, not a famous professor. She had never played in an orchestra. She had performed in exactly one competition. Her family couldn't even afford to buy her sheet music. She had to print it out at the library or check it out from Mr. Henderson's personal collection. Don't worry about all that, Mr. Henderson told her. When they hear you play, none of that will matter. Your talent will speak for itself. Sarah wanted to believe him, but she wasn't sure. She had seen how the world worked. She had seen how people judged you based on where you came from and what you wore and what your parents did for work. She was afraid that no matter how well she played, it wouldn't be enough. Still, she kept practicing. Every single day, she practiced on her grandmother's old piano with its sticky keys and buzzing strings. She practiced until her fingers hurt. She practiced until she could play the most difficult pieces without looking at the music. She practiced until the music became part of her, flowing through her like blood through her veins. Her grandmother got sick when Sarah was 15. She had cancer. Sarah's family couldn't afford the best treatments. They did what they could, but the cancer was strong. Sarah spent every moment she could with her grandmother. She played piano for her. Even when her grandmother was too weak to sit up, she would listen to Sarah play. It made her smile. You're going to do great things, mi amor, her grandmother whispered one day. Her voice was soft and tired. You're going to play in beautiful halls for thousands of people. And when you do, I'll be listening. You'll be there with me, Grandma, Sarah said, holding her hand. You'll be sitting in the front row. Her grandmother smiled. Maybe not in the front row, but I'll be there. Always. Sarah's grandmother died on a Tuesday in October. Sarah was 16 years old. At the funeral, Sarah played the piano. She played a song that her grandmother had taught her when she was 6 years old. Cielito Lindo. It was a Mexican folk song. Her grandmother used to sing it when she was happy. Sarah could barely see the keys through her tears, but she played every note perfectly, because that's what her grandmother would have wanted. After her grandmother died, Sarah practiced even harder. It was her way of honoring her grandmother's memory. The old piano became Sarah's now. Her parents didn't have room for it in their small apartment, but they made room. They moved furniture around. They squeezed the piano into a corner of the living room. It stuck out and made the space cramped. But nobody complained. Sarah practiced in the early morning before school. She practiced in the evening after homework. She practiced on weekends. The neighbors sometimes complained about the noise. Sarah tried to play more quietly, but it was hard. Music wasn't meant to be quiet. Music was meant to fill spaces and touch hearts. When Sarah was 17, she applied to 5 music schools. Mr. Henderson helped her with the applications. He wrote her recommendation letters. He made recordings of her playing. He did everything he could to help her. 4 of the schools rejected her. Their letters were polite but firm. While we appreciate your talent, we are looking for students with more extensive training. We regret to inform you that we have selected other candidates who better fit our program requirements. The letters all said basically the same thing. She wasn't good enough. She didn't have the right background, but one school gave her a chance. The Berkshire Music Academy sent her a letter inviting her to audition. If she did well at the audition, they would consider her for admission, maybe even for a scholarship. Sarah read that letter 20 times. She carried it with her everywhere. This was her chance. Her one chance to show that she belonged in the world of serious music. She practiced the hardest pieces she knew. She practiced until her fingers were sore, and her back ached from sitting at the piano bench for so long. She practiced until her mother begged her to rest. She practiced until the music was perfect. Her father saved money for 3 months to buy her a bus ticket to the city where Berkshire Music Academy was located. Her mother's friend had an apartment there and agreed to let Sarah stay for one night. Everything was arranged. Everything was ready. The night before she left, Sarah sat at her grandmother's old piano one last time. She ran her fingers over the yellow keys. She touched the chips in the black keys. This piano had taught her everything. This piano had been her teacher, her friend, her therapist, her escape. "I'll make you proud, Grandma," Sarah whispered into the empty room. "I promise." She didn't know if she could keep that promise. She didn't know if she was good enough. She didn't know if the judges at Berkshire would see past her old dress and her worn folder and her small-town background. But she knew one thing for certain. She was going to try. She was going to give everything she had. And whatever happened, at least she would know she had done her best. Sarah's fingers moved across the piano keys like water flowing over stones. Smooth, natural, perfect. The music that came from the grand piano filled every corner of the audition hall. It was nothing like the simple exercise Dr. Wilhelm had given her. This was real music. Complex music. Beautiful music. Dr. Wilhelm's pen had stopped moving. He was staring at Sarah now, his mouth slightly open. The woman judge on the left had put her pen down completely. She leaned forward in her chair, her eyes wide with surprise. The bald man with glasses had forgotten to write anything on his paper. All 3 of them were frozen, listening. Sarah didn't notice any of this. When she played piano, the whole world disappeared. There was no audition hall. There were no judges. There was no worry about her old dress or her worn folder. There was only the music and her fingers and the piano. Nothing else mattered. The piece she was playing was called Revolutionary Etude by Chopin. It was one of the most difficult piano pieces ever written. Most professional pianists found it challenging. Students her age rarely even attempted it. The piece required incredible speed, perfect timing, and years of practice. Sarah had practiced it for 2 years. Her left hand was flying across the lower keys, playing notes so fast they almost blurred together. But each note was clear and distinct. Her right hand played the melody on the higher keys. The melody was strong and proud, rising above the rushing notes of the left hand like a voice calling out in a storm. The music got louder, more intense. Sarah's whole body moved with the music. She swayed slightly on the piano bench. Her shoulders moved. Her arms rose and fell as she reached for different parts of the keyboard. This wasn't just playing piano. This was living the music, breathing the music. Being the music, Dr. Wilhelm slowly rose from his chair. He couldn't help himself. In 30 years of judging auditions, he had never stood up during a performance. But he was standing now. He walked closer to the stage as if being nearer to the piano would help him understand what he was hearing. The music was telling a story. It was telling Sarah's story. Every difficult note represented a challenge she had overcome. Every fast passage represented the hours and hours of practice. Every powerful chord represented her determination not to give up, even when people doubted her. Sarah thought about her grandmother as she played. She thought about those first days at the old brown piano, pressing keys one by one and listening to the sounds they made. She thought about her grandmother's gentle voice. "You have a gift, mi amor." She thought about playing at her grandmother's funeral, tears streaming down her face, but every note still perfect, because that's what her grandmother would have wanted. The music got even louder now. Sarah's fingers were moving so fast it seemed impossible. Her hands were crossing over each other, reaching from one end of the keyboard to the other, left hand flying low, right hand soaring high. Together, they created a sound that was both beautiful and powerful. The woman judge had tears in her eyes now. She didn't even realize she was crying. The bald man was gripping the edge of the table. Dr. Wilhelm stood perfectly still 5 feet from the stage, watching Sarah's hands move across the keys like he was witnessing a miracle. Sarah was near the end of the piece now. This was the hardest part, the part where many pianists made mistakes because they were tired or nervous or both. But Sarah had practiced this piece thousands of times. Her fingers knew exactly where to go. Her hands knew exactly how hard to press each key. Her body knew exactly when to breathe and when to hold her breath. The music built to a climax. Louder, faster, more intense. It was like a wave building higher and higher, about to crash on the shore. Sarah's whole body was engaged now. She was putting everything she had into these final measures. Every ounce of strength, every bit of emotion, everything, and then the final chord. Sarah's hands came down on the keys with perfect timing. The sound rang out through the audition hall. Strong, clear, triumphant. Then slowly, the sound faded, quieter and quieter until it was just a whisper, then silence. Sarah's hands stayed on the keys. She was breathing hard. Her heart was pounding. Sweat had formed on her forehead. She had given everything to that performance. Everything she had. The audition hall was completely silent. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. The silence stretched on for what felt like forever, but was probably only 5 seconds. Then Dr. Wilhelm started clapping. Slowly at first, then faster, louder. The woman judge jumped to her feet and clapped too. The bald man stood up clapping. All 3 judges were standing, applauding, their papers and pens forgotten on the table. Sarah turned around on the piano bench. She looked at the 3 judges with surprise. They were clapping for her. The girl in the old dress from the small town with no famous teachers. They were giving her a standing ovation. Dr. Wilhelm stopped clapping. He walked closer to the stage. His face had changed completely. The cold, dismissive expression was gone. Now he looked amazed, impressed, maybe even a little ashamed. "Miss Martinez," he said. His voice was different now, respectful. "In 30 years of conducting auditions, I have never heard anything quite like that. Where did you study?" "I taught myself mostly, sir," Sarah said. Her voice was shaky. She was still catching her breath. "With help from my middle school music teacher and my grandmother. And YouTube videos." Dr. Wilhelm looked shocked. "YouTube videos? You learned to play like that from YouTube videos?" "Yes, sir. And practice. A lot of practice." The woman judge came forward now, too. She was wiping tears from her eyes with a tissue. "That was extraordinary," she said. "Truly extraordinary. The technique, the emotion, the interpretation. It was all perfect." "Thank you," Sarah said quietly. She didn't know what else to say. Dr. Wilhelm was shaking his head slowly as if he couldn't quite believe what he had just heard. He looked at the simple exercise paper sitting on top of the piano. The paper he had given Sarah, the paper that said he thought she wasn't good enough to play real music. "Miss Martinez," he said slowly, "I owe you an apology. I made an assumption about you based on your appearance and your background. That was wrong of me. That was unprofessional. I'm sorry." Sarah didn't expect that. Important people like Dr. Wilhelm didn't usually apologize to girls like her. "It's okay, sir," she said. "No, it's not okay," Dr. Wilhelm said firmly. "It's never okay to judge someone before giving them a fair chance. You taught me an important lesson today. Thank you for that." He turned to look at the other 2 judges. They nodded at him. Some kind of understanding passed between them. "Miss Martinez," Dr. Wilhelm said, turning back to Sarah, "would you be willing to play something else for us?" Sarah's heart skipped. "Another piece?" "Yes, of course." "What would you like me to play?" "Anything you want," Dr. Wilhelm said. Whatever piece means the most to you, Sarah thought for a moment. She knew exactly what to play. There was a piece she had written herself. She had never played it for anyone except her family. She had written it after her grandmother died. It was her way of saying goodbye. Her way of expressing all the love and sadness and gratitude she felt. "I'd like to play something I composed," Sarah said. "It's called Cielito Lindo. I named it after my grandmother's favorite song." "You compose your own music?" The bald man said. It was the first time he had spoken. He sounded amazed. "Just this one piece," Sarah said. "I wrote it for my grandmother." "We would be honored to hear it," Dr. Wilhelm said. Sarah turned back to the piano. She placed her hands on the keys. This piece was different from the Chopin etude. That piece was about strength and power and overcoming obstacles. This piece was about love, about loss, about memory, about the people who shape us and stay with us even after they're gone. Sarah began to play. The first notes were soft and gentle. They sounded like a lullaby, like a mother singing to a child, or a grandmother singing to a granddaughter. The melody was simple but beautiful. It had a sweetness to it, a tenderness. As Sarah played, she thought about her grandmother. She remembered her grandmother's soft hands showing her which keys to press when she was 6 years old. She remembered her grandmother's proud smile when Sarah played her first complete song. She remembered her grandmother's voice, weak with illness but still encouraging. "You're going to do great things, mi amor." The music grew more complex. New layers of melody were added. The bass notes created a foundation. The treble notes danced above them like birds in the sky. But the original melody was still there, woven through everything else, just like her grandmother's influence was woven through everything Sarah did. There was a section in the middle where the music got sad. Minor chords that sounded like tears. Like goodbye. Like holding someone's hand as they slip away. Sarah's eyes filled with tears as she played this section, but she didn't stop. She kept playing. The notes came out perfectly even though she could barely see the keys. Then the music changed again. It became hopeful. The minor chords shifted to major. The sadness turned to something else. Not quite happiness, but acceptance. Peace. The knowledge that the people we love never really leave us. They live on in our memories, in the things they taught us, in the way they shaped who we became. The piece ended the way it began, soft and gentle, like a lullaby, like a grandmother's voice saying goodnight. The final notes faded into silence. Sarah kept her hands on the keys for a moment. She took a deep breath. Then she turned around. All three judges were crying now. Dr. Wilhelm had tears running down his face. He didn't even try to hide them. The woman judge was openly sobbing. The bald man had taken off his glasses and was wiping his eyes. "That was beautiful," the woman judge said. Her voice was thick with emotion. "That was one of the most beautiful things I've ever heard." Dr. Wilhelm walked up to the stage. He climbed the 3 steps. He stood in front of Sarah. He extended his hand. Sarah stood up and shook it. "Miss Martinez," he said, "I would like to offer you a full scholarship to the Berkshire Music Academy." Sarah's mind went blank. She couldn't have heard that right. "I'm sorry, what?" "A full scholarship," Dr. Wilhelm repeated. 4 years. Tuition, room, board, everything. "We want you here." "We need you here. But you haven't even finished all the auditions yet," Sarah said. She couldn't believe this was happening. "Don't you have to discuss it with the other judges?" "Don't you have to compare me to the other students?" Dr. Wilhelm smiled. It was a genuine smile. A warm smile. So different from the cold expression he had worn when Sarah first walked in. "Miss Martinez, in 30 years of doing this, I have learned to recognize exceptional talent when I hear it. What you have is more than talent. You have passion. You have dedication. You have something that can't be taught in any music school, and we would be honored to help you develop it." The woman judge came up to the stage too. "I agree completely. Sarah, you belong here. You more than belong here. You will inspire the other students. You will remind all of us why we fell in love with music in the first place." Sarah felt dizzy. This couldn't be real. Things like this didn't happen to girls like her. Girls from small towns with no money and no famous teachers didn't get full scholarships to prestigious music academies. But it was happening. It was really happening. "I don't know what to say," Sarah said. Her voice was shaking. "Thank you. Thank you so much." "Don't thank us," Dr. Wilhelm said. "You earned this. Every bit of it, he paused. I have one request, though. Anything, Sarah said. That simple exercise I gave you when you first came in, Dr. Wilhelm said. I'm going to frame it and hang it in my office, as a reminder to never judge a student before I hear them play, as a reminder that talent can come from anywhere, and as a reminder that I still have things to learn even after 30 years. Sarah smiled, a real smile, the first real smile she had smiled all day. That sounds like a good idea, sir. Dr. Wilhelm held out his hand again. Sarah shook it. His grip was firm and warm. Welcome to Berkshire Music Academy, Miss Martinez. We can't wait to see what you'll accomplish here. As Sarah walked out of the audition hall, her old brown folder clutched to her chest, she felt like she was floating. The other students waiting in the hallway stared at her as she passed. They could tell something big had just happened, something that didn't happen at ordinary auditions. Sarah walked down the hallway with the thick red carpet. She took the elevator down to the first floor. She walked across the lobby with the shiny marble floors and the chandelier throwing rainbows on the walls. She pushed open the heavy glass doors and stepped outside. The sun was shining. The world looked brighter than it had this morning. Sarah pulled out her phone. She had to call her parents. She had to tell them the news. They weren't going to believe it. She could barely believe it herself. But it was true. It was all true. She had done it. Despite everything. Despite the doubts. Despite the old dress and the worn folder and the small-town background. Despite people like Dr. Wilhelm who had looked at her and decided she wasn't good enough before even hearing her play. She had proven them all wrong. She had proven that talent and hard work and determination were more important than money or connections or famous teachers. She had proven that music didn't care where you came from. Music only cared about what was in your heart. 3 months after that audition, Sarah moved into the Berkshire Music Academy. Her parents drove her there in their old car. The car made strange noises the whole way, and they had to stop twice to add oil to the engine, but they made it. Sarah's little brother came too. He was 10 years old now and so excited to see where his big sister would be living. The dormitory was nicer than any place Sarah had ever lived. She had her own room with a bed, a desk, a closet, and most importantly, a piano. A real piano, much newer than her grandmother's old one. The keys didn't stick. The sound was clear and in tune. Sarah almost cried when she first played it. Her parents stayed for a few hours to help her unpack her things. She didn't have much. Some clothes. Some books. Her old brown folder with sheet music. A framed photo of her grandmother. That was about it. Are you sure you're going to be okay here? Her mother asked for the 10th time. Her mother's eyes were red from crying. She had been crying on and off since they left home. I'm going to be fine, Mama, Sarah said, hugging her. Better than fine. I'm going to make you proud. We're already proud, her father said. His voice was thick with emotion. We've always been proud of you. Her little brother hugged her tight. Don't forget about us when you're famous, he said. Sarah laughed. I could never forget about you. You're my family. After they left, Sarah sat on her bed in her new room. It was quiet. Too quiet. She was used to the sounds of her family's apartment. Her father watching TV, her mother cooking in the kitchen, her brother playing with his toys. Here there was only silence. For a moment Sarah wondered if she had made a mistake. Maybe she didn't belong here. Maybe she should go back home where everything was familiar, where she knew her place in the world. Then she looked at the photo of her grandmother on her desk. Her grandmother was smiling in the photo. It was taken at Sarah's quinceañera, the year before she got sick. You're going to do great things, mi amor. That's what her grandmother had said. Sarah couldn't let her down. She stood up and walked to the piano. She sat down on the bench and started to play. Within minutes, she felt better. Music always made her feel better. Music was her home no matter where she was. The first few weeks at Berkshire were hard. Sarah had to catch up on a lot of things. The other students had studied music theory for years. They knew terms and concepts that Sarah had never heard of. They had performed in recitals and concerts since they were small children. They were comfortable being on stage in front of people. Sarah felt behind. She felt like everyone else was speaking a language she only partially understood. She studied late into the night, reading textbooks and watching more YouTube videos. She practiced piano for hours every day. She was determined to catch up. Some of the other students were nice to her. They could tell she was different, but they didn't care. They just loved music like she did. But some students weren't so nice. They whispered about her. They talked about her old clothes and her lack of training. They wondered out loud how she had gotten a full scholarship when students from better backgrounds had been rejected. There was one girl named Madison who was especially mean. Madison came from a wealthy family. Her father was a famous conductor. Her mother was an opera singer. Madison had been training at exclusive music schools since she was 4 years old. She wore designer clothes and carried expensive bags. She made sure everyone knew she was important. "I heard you taught yourself piano from YouTube," Madison said to Sarah one day in the cafeteria. She said it loud enough for other students to hear. "That's so cute. Like a little hobby." Sarah felt her face get hot, but she didn't say anything. She just kept eating her lunch. "I wonder what Dr. Wilhelm was thinking," Madison continued, "giving a scholarship to someone with no real training. Maybe he felt sorry for you. Maybe he recognized real talent when he heard it," said a voice. Sarah looked up. It was a boy named Marcus. He was a year ahead of Sarah. He played violin. "I heard your audition was incredible. People are still talking about it." Madison rolled her eyes and walked away. Marcus sat down next to Sarah. "Don't let her get to you," Marcus said. "She's just jealous. Her audition was okay, but nothing special. She only got in because of her parents' connections." "Thanks," Sarah said. "But she's right about one thing. I don't have real training. Sometimes I feel like I don't belong here." "You belong here more than half these kids," Marcus said. "Most of them play piano because their parents want them to. You play because you love it. That's the difference. That's what makes you special." Sarah started to believe him. Slowly, she started to find her place at Berkshire. She made friends with students who cared about music more than money or status. She found teachers who appreciated her unique background and her fresh perspective. She learned that while she was behind in some areas, she was ahead in others. Dr. Wilhelm became her faculty advisor and mentor. He took a special interest in her development. He gave her opportunities that other first-year students didn't get. He invited her to perform at faculty recitals. He introduced her to important people in the music world. He believed in her. One day, about 6 months into her first year, Dr. Wilhelm called Sarah to his office. "I have a proposal for you," he said. "The Academy is having a showcase concert next month. It's a big event. Alumni come, donors come, music critics come. We feature our top students. I'd like you to perform." Sarah's eyes went wide. "Me? But I'm only a first-year student." "Don't you usually feature the older students?" "Usually, yes," Dr. Wilhelm said. "But you're not a usual student. Your story is inspiring. Your talent is exceptional. I think people need to hear you play." "What would I play?" Sarah asked. "I'd like you to play the piece you played at your audition, the one you composed for your grandmother." "Cielito lindo." Sarah thought about it. That piece was so personal. It meant so much to her. Did she want to share it with a big audience of strangers? "I know it's asking a lot," Dr. Wilhelm said. "But I think your story and your music could inspire people. It could make them think differently about talent and education and opportunity. It could change lives." Sarah thought about all the young people out there like her. People with talent but no money. People with dreams but no connections. People who felt like they didn't belong in places like Berkshire Music Academy. If her story could help even one person believe in themselves, wasn't that worth it? "Okay," Sarah said. "I'll do it." The next month, Sarah prepared for the showcase concert. She practiced her piece until it was absolutely perfect. She worked with a teacher on her stage presence. She even bought a new dress for the performance. Her first real concert dress. It was simple but elegant, dark blue with a flowing skirt. She felt beautiful in it. The night of the concert arrived. Sarah stood backstage waiting for her turn. She could hear the other students performing. They were all incredible. She started to feel nervous again. What if she wasn't good enough? What if people thought she didn't deserve to be here? Then she heard Dr. Wilhelm on stage introducing her. He told her story. He talked about how she taught herself piano. He talked about her grandmother. He talked about her audition. Sarah could hear emotion in his voice. "This young woman reminds us why we do what we do," Dr. Wilhelm said to the audience. "She reminds us that music is not about privilege or connections. It's about passion and dedication and heart. Please welcome Sarah Martinez." Sarah walked onto the stage. The auditorium was full of people. Hundreds of faces looking at her. The lights were bright. For a moment she felt frozen. Then she saw her family in the third row. Her mother and father and little brother. They had driven all the way here to watch her perform. Her mother was already crying happy tears. Her father was smiling so big. Her brother gave her a thumbs up. Sarah sat down at the grand piano on stage. She placed her hands on the keys. She took a deep breath. Then she began to play. The music filled the auditorium. Soft at first, gentle like a lullaby. Sarah closed her eyes and thought about her grandmother. She thought about that old brown piano with the sticky keys. She thought about all the people who had helped her get here. Her grandmother, her parents, Mr. Henderson, Dr. Wilhelm, she played for all of them. The music grew more complex, more emotional. Sarah poured everything into it. All her love, all her grief, all her gratitude, all her hope. The audience was completely silent, listening to every note. When Sarah played the sad section, the part about saying goodbye, people in the audience started crying. When she played the hopeful section, the part about memories living on, people smiled through their tears. Sarah's music was touching something deep in all of them, something universal, something human. The piece ended softly, just like it began. The final notes faded into silence. For a moment, nobody moved. Then the entire auditorium erupted in applause. Everyone was standing. Everyone was clapping. Many people were still crying. Sarah stood up and bowed. The applause got louder. She looked at her family. Her mother was sobbing. Her father had his arm around her, tears running down his own face. Her brother was jumping up and down, clapping as hard as he could. Dr. Wilhelm came onto the stage. He hugged Sarah. "That was perfect," he whispered. "Absolutely perfect." After the concert, so many people wanted to talk to Sarah. Alumni told her how moved they were. Donors asked about her background. Music critics asked if they could interview her. Sarah was overwhelmed by all the attention. A woman in an elegant black dress approached Sarah. "That was extraordinary," the woman said. "I'm Catherine Mills. I run a foundation that provides music education to underprivileged children. I'd love to talk to you about possibly becoming involved with our work." A man in a suit came over. "Sarah Martinez, I'm Robert Chen. I'm a talent scout for the New York Philharmonic's youth program. We should talk about performance opportunities." Over the next few weeks, Sarah's life changed in ways she never imagined. Her performance had been recorded and someone posted it online. The video went viral. Millions of people watched it. News outlets wanted to interview her. She was invited to perform at other venues. People she had never met sent her messages saying how much her story inspired them. But the best part was the letters. Sarah started receiving letters from young people all over the country. Young people from small towns and poor families. Young people who loved music but thought they could never pursue it seriously. Young people who saw Sarah's story and thought, maybe I can do it too. One letter was from a 12-year-old girl in Texas. "I've been teaching myself piano from YouTube videos just like you did," the girl wrote. "Everyone says I'm wasting my time. But after seeing your video, I'm going to keep practicing. Thank you for showing me that it's possible." Another letter was from a 15-year-old boy in Mississippi. "I come from a poor family like you. I thought places like Berkshire Music Academy were only for rich kids. But you proved that's not true. You gave me hope." Sarah read every letter. She cried over many of them. She tried to respond to as many as she could. She wanted these young people to know that she believed in them, that their dreams were valid, that they could overcome obstacles just like she had. Dr. Wilhelm called Sarah to his office again. "Your performance has had quite an impact," he said. "The Board of Trustees has been discussing it. We've decided to create a new scholarship program, the Sarah Martinez Scholarship. It will provide full funding for talented students from disadvantaged backgrounds, students like you." Sarah couldn't believe it. "They're naming a scholarship after me? You've changed this institution," Dr. Wilhelm said. "You've reminded us of our mission. Our mission isn't just to train musicians from wealthy families. It's to find and nurture talent wherever it exists. You've shown us that we need to look beyond the usual places, beyond the famous teachers and the elite prep schools. Real talent can come from anywhere." "I don't know what to say," Sarah said. "You don't need to say anything," Dr. Wilhelm said. "Just keep being who you are. Keep playing from your heart. Keep inspiring people. That's the greatest gift you can give." That night, Sarah called her mother. She told her about the scholarship program. Her mother cried so hard she could barely speak. "Your grandmother would be so proud. her mother finally managed to say. So proud. I wish she could see this, Sarah said.
She can see it, mija, her mother said.
I know she can. And she's smiling. Sarah hung up the phone and sat at the piano in her dorm room. She played Cielito Lindo one more time, soft and gentle, like a grandmother's lullaby. And somehow Sarah felt like her grandmother was there with her, listening, smiling, proud of everything her granddaughter had become. The ripples from Sarah's audition kept spreading. Students at Berkshire started looking at talent differently. They started respecting hard work and dedication more than fancy pedigrees. Teachers started recruiting from a wider range of schools and backgrounds. The whole culture of the academy began to shift. And Sarah? She kept practicing. She kept performing. She kept growing as a musician. But most importantly, she kept remembering where she came from. She never forgot the old brown piano with sticky keys. She never forgot her grandmother's gentle encouragement. She never forgot what it felt like to be judged and dismissed before anyone heard her play. Those memories kept her humble. They kept her kind. They kept her grateful. And they made her determined to help other young people who faced the same challenges she had faced. Because Sarah knew something that many people didn't understand. Talent isn't about money or connections or famous teachers. Talent is about love and dedication, and refusing to give up on your dreams no matter what obstacles stand in your way. 3 years passed quickly. Sarah was now in her final year at Berkshire Music Academy. She had grown so much as a musician and as a person. She had performed in dozens of concerts. She had won competitions. She had studied with the best teachers in the country. But she had also stayed true to herself. She never forgot where she came from. The Sarah Martinez Scholarship had helped 15 students so far. Students from small towns and poor families. Students with talent but no connections. Students who reminded Sarah of herself 3 years ago. Sarah had met each of them. She had mentored some of them. She had become their friend and their inspiration. Madison, the girl who had been so mean to Sarah in her first year, had changed too. She had apologized to Sarah in their second year. I was jealous, Madison admitted. You had something I didn't have. You had real passion for music. I was just doing this because my parents wanted me to. Watching you made me realize I needed to find my own reason to play. Madison had become one of Sarah's friends. She had started teaching music to children in poor neighborhoods. She said Sarah had inspired her to use her privilege to help others. Marcus, the boy who had defended Sarah in the cafeteria, had graduated and was now playing violin with a professional orchestra. He and Sarah still talked regularly. You changed this place, he told her once. You made it better, more real. Dr. Wilhelm had become like a second father to Sarah. He had guided her through her years at Berkshire. He had pushed her to be better, while also encouraging her to stay true to her unique style. He had helped her navigate the professional music world with its competitions and politics and pressures. Now, in her final year, something incredible was happening. Sarah had been selected to perform at Carnegie Hall. Carnegie Hall in New York City, one of the most famous concert halls in the entire world. The greatest musicians in history had performed there. And now Sarah was going to perform there too. The concert was scheduled for a Saturday evening in April. It was a showcase of young, talented musicians from across the country. Sarah would be playing 2 pieces. The Chopin etude she had played at her audition, and her own composition, Cielito Lindo. The weeks before the concert were busy and stressful. Sarah practiced constantly. She wanted everything to be perfect. Dr. Wilhelm helped her prepare. He gave her advice about performing in such a large, prestigious venue. He helped her work through her nervousness. Remember why you play, he told her. You don't play to impress critics or win awards. You play to share something beautiful with the world. You play to make people feel something. That's what made your audition so special 3 years ago. That's what will make your Carnegie Hall performance special too. Sarah's parents saved money for months so they could come to New York for the concert. They had never been to New York before. Her little brother, who was 13 now, was so excited. He had watched videos of Carnegie Hall on YouTube. He couldn't believe his sister was going to perform there. Mr. Henderson, Sarah's middle school music teacher, was coming too. Sarah had bought him a ticket. He had been the first person to believe in her talent, the first person to invest time in teaching her. She wanted him to be there for this moment. The foundation that Catherine Mills ran had also helped fund Sarah's Carnegie Hall performance. Catherine had become a mentor and friend to Sarah. She was helping Sarah develop a program to provide free online piano lessons to children who couldn't afford regular lessons. Sarah was so excited about this project. It would help kids like she used to be, kids learning from YouTube videos because they had no other choice. The day of the concert arrived. Sarah woke up early in her New York hotel room. The hotel was nice, nicer than any place she had stayed before, but she felt nervous. More nervous than she had felt for any performance in the last 3 years. She practiced on the piano in her hotel room for an hour. Then she went for a walk to calm her nerves. The streets of New York were busy and loud. So different from her quiet hometown in New Mexico. She walked past street performers and food vendors and tourists taking pictures. The city was alive with energy. That evening, Sarah stood backstage at Carnegie Hall. She wore a beautiful new dress. It was deep purple, her favorite color. Her mother had helped her pick it out. Her hair was styled nicely. She wore a little makeup. She looked elegant and professional, but inside she was still the same Sarah. The girl who learned piano on a broken instrument with sticky keys. The girl who taught herself from YouTube videos. The girl who had been judged and dismissed before anyone heard her play. She carried that girl with her always. That girl made her who she was. She peeked out from backstage at the audience. The hall was huge. There were 3 levels of seats, all filled with people. Thousands of people, all here to listen to music. Sarah saw her family sitting in the 3rd row, just like they had sat at her showcase concert at Berkshire. Her mother was wearing her best dress. Her father wore a suit that he had borrowed from a friend. Her brother looked uncomfortable in his dress clothes but was smiling big. Mr. Henderson sat next to them. He looked older than Sarah remembered, but his eyes were bright with pride. Dr. Wilhelm sat in the front row with other faculty from Berkshire. Catherine Mills was there too, along with board members from her foundation. But Sarah also saw people she didn't know. Critics who would write reviews of the concert, professional musicians who came to evaluate young talent, music lovers who just wanted to hear beautiful playing. All of them were waiting to hear her. The announcer's voice came over the speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Sarah Martinez." Sarah took a deep breath. She walked onto the stage. The applause was loud, echoing through the huge hall. The lights were bright, but not as blinding as she expected. She could see faces in the audience. She could see her mother already crying happy tears. Sarah walked to the grand piano at the center of the stage. It was a beautiful instrument. She sat down on the bench. She adjusted it slightly. She placed her hands on the keys. They felt cool and smooth, perfect. The hall got quiet. Thousands of people holding their breath, waiting. This was it. This was the moment Sarah had been working toward for her entire life. She thought about her grandmother. If she closed her eyes, she could almost hear her grandmother's voice. "You're going to do great things, mi amor." She thought about her parents working double shifts to support her dreams. She thought about Mr. Henderson giving her free lessons during his lunch breaks. She thought about Dr. Wilhelm standing up during her audition, amazed by what he was hearing. And she thought about all the young people who had sent her letters, all the kids teaching themselves piano from YouTube, all the children who thought their dreams were impossible because they didn't have money or connections. She was playing for them tonight. She was showing them that impossible dreams can come true. Sarah began to play the Chopin etude. Her fingers flew across the keys. The music filled Carnegie Hall. It rose up to the high ceiling and washed over the thousands of people listening. Every note was perfect. Every phrase was expressive. Every measure was full of emotion and power. The audience was mesmerized. This wasn't just technical skill, though Sarah's technique was flawless. This was artistry. This was music that spoke directly to the heart. You could see it on people's faces. Some had their eyes closed, lost in the sound. Some had tears running down their cheeks. Some sat forward in their seats, not wanting to miss a single note. Sarah played with her whole body. Her hands danced across the keyboard. Her shoulders moved with the music. Her face showed every emotion the music contained. She wasn't just playing the piano. She was becoming the music. She was letting the music flow through her and out into the world. When the Chopin ended with its triumphant final chords, there was a moment of silence. Then the applause exploded. People jumped to their feet. They clapped and cheered. Sarah stood and bowed. She looked at her family. Her mother was sobbing. Her father had his arms around her. Her brother was clapping so hard his hands must have hurt. The applause finally died down. Sarah sat back down at the piano. Now came the piece she cared about most. Cielito Lindo, her composition for her grandmother. She had played it dozens of times since that first performance at Berkshire, but it never got easier. Every time she played it, she felt all the same emotions. The love, the loss, the gratitude, the hope. She placed her hands on the keys again. The hall got quiet once more. Sarah began to play. The opening notes were soft, gentle, like a lullaby, like a grandmother singing to a child. Sarah played with her eyes half closed. She was somewhere else now. She was in her grandmother's living room. She was 6 years old again, pressing piano keys for the first time and hearing the magical sounds they made. The music built slowly, layers of melody weaving together. It told a story. The story of a girl and her grandmother. The story of an old piano and countless hours of practice. The story of dreams and sacrifice and love. When the music reached the sad section, Sarah felt tears on her cheeks. But she didn't stop playing. The notes came out perfectly even through her tears. This section was about goodbye, about holding someone's hand as they slip away, about the pain of loss. People in the audience were crying too. They felt it. They understood. Then the music changed. It became hopeful. The minor chords shifted to major. This section was about memory, about how the people we love never really leave us. They live on in everything we do, in every note we play, in every dream we chase, in every impossible thing we accomplish. Sarah thought about how her grandmother would feel if she could see this moment. Her granddaughter playing at Carnegie Hall, playing music that she had written herself, sharing her story with thousands of people, making a difference in the world. Her grandmother would be so proud. Sarah knew it in her heart. The piece ended the way it began, soft and gentle, like a grandmother's voice saying goodnight. Like a lullaby fading as a child falls asleep, the final notes hung in the air for a moment, then dissolved into silence. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. The silence stretched on and on. Then slowly someone started clapping. Then another person. Then everyone. The entire Carnegie Hall audience rose to their feet. They clapped and cheered. Many were still crying. Sarah stood and bowed. The applause got louder. She looked at her family again. They were all standing, clapping, crying. Her little brother was wiping his eyes with his sleeve. Mr. Henderson had his hand over his heart. Dr. Wilhelm was applauding with tears running down his face. Sarah bowed again. The applause continued. It went on for minutes. People didn't want to stop. They wanted Sarah to know how much her music had touched them, how much her story meant to them, how much hope she had given them. Finally, the applause began to fade. Sarah walked off stage. But she knew this wasn't really an ending. It was a beginning. The beginning of her career as a professional musician. The beginning of her work helping other young people from disadvantaged backgrounds. The beginning of everything her grandmother had believed she could be. After the concert, there was a reception. So many people wanted to meet Sarah. Critics told her it was one of the finest performances they had seen from a young musician. Professional musicians asked if she had signed with a manager yet. College professors wanted her to come speak to their students. But the best moment was when Sarah's family came backstage. Her mother hugged her so tight Sarah could barely breathe. Her father had tears in his eyes. "Your grandmother was watching tonight," he said. "I know she was, and she was so proud." Her little brother hugged her too. "That was amazing," he said. "You're like a superhero, but with a piano." Sarah laughed. "I'm not a superhero. I'm just someone who worked really hard and never gave up." "That's what makes you a superhero," her brother said. Mr. Henderson shook Sarah's hand. "I knew you were special from the first time I heard you play," he said. "But you've exceeded even my wildest dreams for you. Thank you for letting me be part of your journey." "Thank you for believing in me," Sarah said. "Thank you for teaching me. I wouldn't be here without you." Dr. Wilhelm came over. He didn't say anything at first. He just hugged Sarah. When he stepped back, his eyes were wet. "I have been judging auditions and teaching music for 35 years, he said. "But tonight was the first time I truly understood what music is supposed to do. It's supposed to transform people, change them, make them feel things they've never felt before. You did that tonight, Sarah. You transformed every person in that audience." "Thank you for giving me a chance," Sarah said. "Thank you for looking past your first impression of me." "You're the one who taught me that lesson," Dr. Wilhelm said. "You reminded me that I should never judge a book by its cover. or a musician by their appearance. That day of your audition changed my life as much as it changed yours. The months after Carnegie Hall were busy. Sarah finished her final year at Berkshire Music Academy. She graduated at the top of her class. She received multiple job offers from orchestras and music schools. She was invited to perform at concert halls around the country, and even internationally. But Sarah made a decision that surprised many people. She decided to split her time. Half the year she would perform professionally. She would travel to concert halls and music festivals. She would record albums. She would do all the things that professional pianists do. But the other half of the year she would teach. Not at a fancy music school. Not at a prestigious university. She would teach online, creating free lessons for children who couldn't afford regular piano instruction. She would travel to small towns and poor communities giving workshops and master classes. She would find talented kids who were being overlooked and help them apply to music schools. You could make so much more money if you focused only on performing, her manager told her. Why split your time like this? Because money isn't why I play piano, Sarah said. I play piano because it makes me feel alive. Because it connects me to other people. Because it gives hope to kids who feel hopeless. That's worth more than any amount of money. Sarah's online piano lessons became hugely popular. Hundreds of thousands of children watched them. Many were from poor families, just like Sarah's family had been. They learned basic technique. They learned to read music. They learned that they could pursue their dreams even without expensive lessons or fancy instruments. Sarah created a video series called From My Grandmother's Piano to Carnegie Hall. In the videos, she told her story. She showed pictures of the old brown piano with sticky keys. She talked about teaching herself from YouTube. She talked about Mr. Henderson and Dr. Wilhelm. She talked about facing rejection and doubt, but mostly she talked about never giving up. The videos were watched millions of times. Sarah received thousands of messages from young people who said her story inspired them. Some of them sent her videos of themselves playing piano. Sarah tried to watch as many as she could. She left encouraging comments. She gave them advice. She told them to keep practicing. One day, Sarah received a message from a 14-year-old girl named Elena. Elena lived in a small town in rural Oregon. She was teaching herself piano from Sarah's online lessons. She had learned on a keyboard her mother bought at a garage sale for $20. The keyboard only had 61 keys instead of the full 88. Some of the keys didn't work properly, but Elena practiced every day. "You're my hero," Elena wrote. "I want to be just like you someday. I want to play at Carnegie Hall. Everyone says I'm dreaming too big. They say poor kids from small towns don't become concert pianists. But you did it. So maybe I can too." Sarah wrote back immediately. "You can do it," she told Elena. "It won't be easy. You'll face obstacles and doubts. Some people won't believe in you. But if you work hard and never give up, you can achieve anything. I believe in you." Sarah did more than just send encouraging messages. She arranged for a real piano to be delivered to Elena's house. It wasn't new, but it was in good condition. All 88 keys worked. It was in tune. When Elena sent Sarah a video of herself crying happy tears while playing her new piano, Sarah cried too. Sarah also stayed in touch with the students receiving the Sarah Martinez Scholarship at Berkshire. She visited them when she could. She answered their questions. She helped them navigate the challenges of being different from most of the other students.